Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
The breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, the breaking news: severe storms slamming the east, tornado concerns from Florida all the way up to Philadelphia. Watches stretching 1,000 miles from Florida to the northeast. Blizzard warnings elsewhere. Drivers facing whiteout conditions in multiple states. Cars off highways, winds gusting 60 miles per hour. Thousands of flights canceled. Ginger Z is here. The chaos at America's airports, these severe storms, and TSA staffing shortages worsening. Now, weeks into this partial government shutdown, nearly 60,000 TSA workers going without their paychecks. The major airlines tonight begging lawmakers to pay these workers. The war in Iran tonight, an Iranian drone hitting a hotel, flames shooting out the windows. And tonight, President Trump now blasting America's NATO allies, demanding that they now help secure the Strait of Hormuz. One ally saying, "It's not our war." James Longman, live from the region tonight. Just in, a federal judge tonight blocking Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s major changes involving childhood vaccines. Tonight, the Academy of Pediatrics calling this a victory and what they say parents should do. In New York City, the deadly inferno, a massive fire, 4 people killed, including a child. The daring Coast Guard rescue on the ice breaking apart in the middle of the rescue. Dolly Parton's first public appearance and what she's now revealed about her health. And the Oscars, the best actor celebrating with his mother at the Oscars, and then with his Oscar in one hand, a burger in the other, where he went right after. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir. Good evening on this Monday night. We begin tonight. This is Asia First.
Good morning. I'm Julie Yu. The headlines this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's asked China to delay a planned summit with Xi Jinping by about a month due to the escalating war in Iran, with the conflict also straining ties with key allies. Several countries pushed back on Washington's call to send warships to reopen shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Britain says it's working with partners on a viable plan but rules out a NATO mission. Germany also rejects any military role, saying it lacks the mandate, as Mr. Trump criticizes described as a lack of enthusiasm.
Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. And the level of enthusiasm matters to me.
I'm Henry Yin. Oil prices climbing again in Asian trade after ending in the red overnight on signs that emergency U.S. crude supplies will be available soon. Market sentiment hinges largely on the fate of tankers stranded outside the crucial waterway that funnels 1/5 of global crude supplies. Asia-Pacific markets tracking Wall Street higher on hopes the Middle East supply crunch could soon ease, but traders remain on edge after President Trump threatened further strikes on Iran's main oil export hub, Khan Island.
I'm Elizabeth Muir. The disruption is now rippling through global food supply chains. Around 1/3 of the world's fertilizer ingredients pass through the Gulf, and prices have already surged by more than 30%. Experts warn poorer import-dependent countries could be hardest hit. Plus,
reporting for CNA from the Iraq-Iran border, which has faced significant disruption since the conflict began. That is Iran.
unlike other Middle Eastern states touched by the war, Iraq boasts both entrenched Iran-aligned forces and significant U.S. interests. That special report coming up.
And heavy casualties are feared in Afghanistan after a Pakistani airstrike hit a drug rehabilitation hospital in the capital, Kabul. Afghan officials say the death toll has risen to around 400 as cross-border fighting between two sides escalates. Plus,
finally, AI is able to do productive work
And therefore, the inflection point of inference has arrived.
Betting on what he believes is the next growth engine, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang forecasts $1 trillion in AI chip revenue through 2027, citing rising demand for AI models carrying out tasks or answering questions.
But first, U.S. President Donald Trump is seeking to delay a planned summit with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, about a month to deal with the war in Iran.
He was scheduled to visit Beijing for 3 days from the 31st of March. And Mr. Trump earlier hinted at a delay as he called on Beijing and several NATO allies to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, the request comes after delegations from both sides concluded 2 days of bilateral talks in Paris that were expected to pay for the summit. Or for more, CNN.
Now, if you turn on other networks, which I never advise you to do, it's nonstop negative coverage of the ongoing conflict with Iran. For example, Fake Jake over at Fake News CNN says the media is just doing their job and they don't deserve any criticism at all whatsoever. Take a look.
President Trump and his allies are still frustrated with journalists for having the audacity to report on the war with Iran in ways that they do not approve of, rather than cheering it on. Every reporter that I know wants the United States to succeed in every way. And the way that reporters help that happen is by asking questions of people in power.
The same guy that couldn't see Joe's cognitive decline. Now, maybe Fake Jake, missed it when his outlet, Fake News CNN, played an actual Iranian propaganda film streaming Iranian state TV to show their dwindling viewership. The new Supreme Leader's first address, which, by the way, wasn't given by him. It was a written statement trashing America. All right, take a look at your screen. Headlines like this are very common. Iran names slain Supreme Leader's son as successor in a defiant message to Trump. And it's not only Fake News CNN. The New York Times posting this fawning obituary referring to Iran's dead terrorist leader as an autocratic cleric who made Iran a regional power. An MSDNC, former Obama advisor Ben Rhodes, said with a straight face that Iran's foreign minister is more credible than U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. Wow. Now, I want to pause for a second and pose the following question. If these are the talking points after a 2-week historic military success, can you imagine how legacy media, Democrats, isolationists, would have covered World War II, where nearly 500,000 Americans died, or even D-Day, where 2,500 Americans lost their lives slamming those beaches in Normandy, or Pearl Harbor, 2,400 Americans killed, thousands of Americans killed during Iraq and Afghanistan. Donald Trump learned the lessons from Reagan, learned the lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan, learned the lessons of the last century, nearly 100 million human souls murdered in the name of some ism. But now many on the left, some on the right, are in full panic mode over what is a historic miracle unfolding before our eyes known as Operation Epic Fury, which brings us to another fundamental question. Are these Trump haters really willing to risk a nuclear-armed Iran? Stop. Freeze frame. That is the defining question, not really a debatable question. You either want a nuclear-armed Iran.
The U.S. president pressuring allies this Monday night to help police a pivotal oil route as his war on Iran rages on.
We'll protect them, and if ever needed, if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us.
Trump's warning to NATO and how allies, including Canada, are responding. A reality check on Canada's promise to quickly ramp up oil production to help lower prices.
That's not how production works in Canada.
What provincial governments could do instead. Layoffs blame AI, why economists are casting doubt on that narrative.
We should be taking a lot of what these tech companies say is with salt.
Plus, red, white, and gold. The Canadians who won big on Hollywood's biggest night.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. president is not getting the help he is seeking.
This is DWTV, our top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump said he has demanded multiple countries to set the Strait of Hormuz open. Iran strikes on commercial ships have all but stopped traffic through the critical campaign against the militant group. Lebanon's government said more than 1 million people have been displaced during 2 weeks of fighting. Israel's defense minister warned that those who left their homes in the south could not return until northern Israel is secure. A strike by Pakistan
inside Iran.
The man who lives here doesn't want to talk from Canberra, but he's told us that when the explosion happened, the blastways filled his apartment with thick dust and smoke and put his wife and daughter both in hospital with broken bones and shrapnel wounds. It gives you a sense, really, that however precise the munitions that the Israelis and Americans say they're using, this have some impact for those living around wherever they're targeting.
As we see firsthand the scale of devastation caused in Tehran by the war with the United States and Israel. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister gives a warning to President Trump if he puts boots on the ground.
Just read what happened in Vietnam.
You're saying it could be a quite enough for the Americans?
I say that, I hope that, wisdom prevailed.
The Prime Minister insists that he won't be drawn into a wider war in the Middle East as President Trump doubles down on his criticism of the UK with another demand for help in securing the Strait of Hormuz.
I'm not happy with it. I think but they should be involved in this. Yes, we've been protecting these countries.
The economics of the war continues to hit. Prime Minister, there's £50 CEO price. Iran's its boots on the ground in war. Guy Dominic Wagner. One of long
is dead. Long live the Ayatollah. Iran's airbase closed with overland. Only international journalists currently allowed in to witness the impact of this war on the ground as it continues to escalate. In an exclusive interview with Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, an ominous warning, the speculation grows that America may next send in troops.
Even suggesting that a foreign country can put boots on
Visit abc.net.au/emergency.
Today, the Reserve Bank to make a call on interest rates amid rising inflation and growing global uncertainty.
If there is an rate increase, it will hit households hard.
At least 400 people have been killed in a Pakistani airstrike on a hospital in Kabul. US President critical of Western allies for refusing to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. And a New South Wales woman discovers that she and her twin sister are not genetically related to their parents. League to raise rates for a second straight month this afternoon. The RBA increased the cash rate in February for the first time in more than 2 years after inflation picked up noticeably in December. Uncertainties surrounding the Middle East conflicts and the global jump in oil prices are expected to play a big part in the RBA's decision, with inflation now expected to rise beyond 4.5%, according to Treasury modelling. Ahead of the May federal budget, Finance Minister Katie Gallagher says the government will be factoring in cost of living pressures, with a possible third rate rise forecast for May.
If there is another interest rate increase, it will hit households hard, and that's why the government is focusing on cost. Finally, with those on, we have.
Africa News. The news.
With the opposition divided and largely absent, observers say voter turnout could reach a record low. Some, the election day internet blackout was communication does have an impact because we're faced oil free change. Waiting for the results. There won't be anything out of the ordinary. We young people are already taking charge of our lives through the work we do. In this workshop, we create sculptures, and we're just waiting for the markets to open so that we artists can be supported, because the markets for what we do don't exist, and that makes things difficult for us. While Sassou Nguesso's re-election seems assured, the Constitution forbids him from running again in 2031. He said he won't remain in power forever, and that the younger generation will get its turn, but he's yet to name anyone as a possible successor.
The tensions between Somalia and Israel could be picking up the pace. Israel was the first country in the world to recognize the breakaway region of Somaliland last December. But now, alleged plans to build not retreat in confrontations. In its going war against Iran. Somaliland previously denied that its relationship with Israel was of military nature. In February, it however said that it could not Israel presence. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi created Congo's first economic and financial criminal court over the weekend. The decree law signed on Saturday established a specialized criminal court to deal with a variety of offenses, including corruption, fraud, and public.
Welcome to Night Watch on France 24. I'm Charlotte Lamb, and these are your top stories. European powers have pushed back on Donald Trump's call for a NATO mission to secure and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The president says he's not happy after the UK's Prime Minister said the country would not be dragged into a wider war. Iran has effectively shut the key waterway, disrupting global trade. Life under bombardment inside the Iranian capital as US-Israeli airstrikes intensify. Some residents try to maintain a sense of normality despite the ongoing attacks. And Israel steps up its offensive in Lebanon. The IDF begins limited ground operations against the Iran-backed group Hezbollah, as Lebanese authorities
Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I hope you will come again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.